So yeah, my name is Richard, and today I'm going to talk to you how product manager can work the most effectively possible with a finance team. So today I'm going to debunk a little bit of misconceptions around what a finance team, what they do, and what is their purpose in a company, and how to hopefully best work with them. And I'm going to try and give you as many tips as possible to try to maximize this collaboration. Um, so because like really finance is so big and so large, I want to focus on the targets that will most probably be attractive to the people who will be listening to this video, and narrow down the finance team to the traditional tech SaaS company. So not a financial team that you could find in HSBC or another big financial institution. So for the crazy ones, and before I jump in, so I'd rather actually say that before, because at the end you might uh, run away. So if you're actually interested in the theme of finance as much as I am, I do recommend to jump in on some of these websites and subscribe to these newsletters. So they are a great source of information for people with a finance or non-finance background. So Investopedia is really great for starters, and the others might be a little bit more advanced, but I do heavily recommend read and just browse around these websites. They are, like, as I said, really full of insightful information, and not just finance, but also for product managers. So what is or what isn't a finance team? So I think I really want to start by highlighting that there is a big misconception that a lot of product manager and people around might have is a finance team is definitely not, these people Hollywood style, like spending the money in a ostentatious way, that you can imagine in a Wolf of Wall Street. This is really way far from that, and more than anything, they are way savvy than you can even imagine. However, on the opposite side, they're not also the caveman accountants that some of the people I've been talking to can think of. It's completely untrue. They're not these completely stillborn and to the dime type of person. On the contrary, they are more than willing to invest in projects in your company, and so they are a resource that needs to be maximized as a product manager, and I'm going to show you why. So there is a truth behind that. Is we do see the world in a different way, where product managers could tend to see the world in, let's say, a circle with the test, learning, improve, test, learning, improve, kind of like circle. At the end of the day, this is our own version of how we see our day-to-day life. And finance see it in a different way. They do tend to see in a balance sheet way. There is the money in, the money out, the positive and the negative. And there is the balance at the end. And they're here to judge whether it's positive or negative. So it's a different way, a more linear way, I would rather say, to see the world. However, we do speak the same language. So the two learnings that I really want to highlight in these like really few and high level slides is product managers need to make the effort of adapting to this new way of seeing the world. However, please note that they talk the same language as us, because a finance team by definition are heavily data oriented, and they thrive with facts and don't really give too much attention to opinions, and rather really stick to the facts and to the data. So even if we do see the world in two different ways, we actually speak the same language. And that is a great opportunity for us to try to really maximize our work and their work, and bring in some really interesting projects. So how is a finance team traditionally split? So as I said, I'm going to focus on the traditional tech SaaS business. And so this could be like an oversimplification of how finance teams are set up in most of the companies, but it brings a really good high-level overview of the key functionalities and the key responsibilities of them. So I've split the financial team into two main departments: the accounting and reporting, and the strategic financial and management. So let's see how how the key responsibilities of each of them. And I'm going to skim through that. So the key responsibilities that fall into the accounting and reporting area are account payable and receivable. So mostly this part of accounting will handle, process, and take care that all the money that the customers owe your company, or that your company actually owes the providers or suppliers, goes through. It's well handled, is going, and then they usually go and make a record of that into what we call traditionally the ledgers. So they work tightly with accounting, payable, and receivable. And usually on top of them, there is the financial control. So it's usually someone a little bit more senior who has like more years of experience working with all these different areas in finance. And the financial controls, they basically make sure that everything that is financially related, so the money that is accounted for or the money that is spent, is follow the rules of the country, is actually within the law. And finally, and kind of like most importantly for for us, at the end of the month, the payroll. So the payroll usually falls within the responsibility of accounting and reporting. So to make sure that the employees are paid on time and accordingly to the contracts. But that's not it. That's not even it. So the second part, which is strategic finance and management. So here, this group of subset of people within the finance team, they usually try to maximize how the finance works internally. So treasury will basically look at how the money is spent and to make sure that the company doesn't run out of cash, especially important in this moment of crisis that we all live in right now. And treasury basically really syncs up with all the three others department that I'm highlighting here: risk management, planning and growth, and budgeting. They all have like a different view, but at the end of the day, what they really care about is to try to maximize and make sure that the money is well spent, that we minimize the risk, and that's all the budget that is accounted for is actually enough, that is well spent and is planned for. And this heavily relies on a good relationship with product managers on their roadmap, because as a product manager, you need to draw a roadmap and show them exactly, what will be the resources you need, and what will be the financial budget tied to these projects. And so the final big responsibility that usually strategic finance management have is to handle the relationship with your investors. So this is crucial, as you can imagine, for a small, medium, even for a big company, whether you're trying to raise more money or not. This is one of the most important part of the company, is to keep that relationship going with the investors. So this is only a high-level recap, and there are tons and tons and tons of other responsibilities that other companies might have in for the finance team, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. But usually, some of the key ones that you'll tend to find within your companies. So before saying that product management is the most important part in a company or engineering or design, please have a little bit of respect. Because at the end of the day, and this is my third learning, is always remember that at the end of the month when you open your letter and you read your paycheck, this is mostly thanks to them. So really important to keep that in mind next time you talk to them. So what are the biggest pain points for finance? They have a lot. And I thought to recap them in two different type of categories. First one, which mostly keeps them awake at night, is the financial pain points. You'll see what it is after. And the process pain points. So here on both categories, a lot of opportunities for product managers to optimize and really maximize the output of the financial team. That should be really focused on providing added value to the entire company and not just drawing some Excel spreadsheets. So the financial pain points, and most probably the most important for them, it can basically be resumed by the word profit. Simplicity, I mean, to put it in a simple way, profit is revenue minus costs. And here it's a no-brainer, really. How can product managers help them maximize this profit? And really, if you do, I assure you, you'll be the best friend of your CEO. And how can product lower costs? There are tons of opportunities. Look at the try to push organic traffic, promote cheaper acquisition channels, lower your FX fees, lower any OPEX fees that you have. And usually, as a product team, we do have a lot of even sometimes unnecessary OPEX fees related to all the softwares that we use. Just spend one day looking at all the software spendings that you have in your team, check whether they're actually useful or not, and you'll be impressed by how much savings you can have. And this is the type of cost that you can actually look at tomorrow. You don't have to spend actually 3 or 6 months to have results right now. And the list goes on and on and on and on. So there are a lot of opportunities to do that. And traditionally speaking, based on the maturity of your company, product managers will tend to focus more on revenue or on cost. In younger companies where the growth is the key and the North Star metric for investor, then you tend to naturally focus more on revenue, so how to bring in more customers. And once the company reaches a certain level of maturity, then you start looking at the cost, try to optimize everything that you do internally, because this is when you start being kind of happy and confident that your growth rates is naturally growing by itself. So you'd be looking at other ways to increasing your profit. And this world is kind of being shaken right now with the COVID-19 crisis because, for most of the companies, there is a cash situation. Companies have to make sure that they don't run out of cash tomorrow. And to do that, the quickest way is usually to lower the costs. So there is a bit of a shakeup right now in this world. So to recap how product managers can help on these financial pain points. Product managers have to be financially oriented and make the effort to try to identify the biggest opportunities, whether it's on revenue growth or whether it's on cost decrease. Another best practice that I would heavily recommend is when preparing your new features, whether you do write a PR FAQ, so these Amazon documents where you expose all your rationale on why you want to build a new feature, you have to make sure that you ask yourself this question: is what will be the impact on profit? Do ask yourself these tough questions right at the beginning and run it by the finance team. And this is really important to do it. So the second category of issues that are related to process. Processes pain points are kind of like a historical and kind of almost like a backlog type of pain points. Traditionally, since the most of the North Star metric for young companies is growth, they won't spend a lot of time looking at the finance team and their operations. So most of the time, you'd have situations where financial people within the finance team will have to do a lot of manual work, a lot of like Excel spreadsheets working around, and I mean, we all know that's definitely not ideal. And product manager can definitely make a big difference by automating. The key word is automation. So start by mapping out all the processes of finance using visualization tools such as Miro, which is a great visualization tool that allows you to really identify the biggest bottlenecks and the biggest opportunities in these flows. Highlight the processes that are already automated, and the ones that are not yet. It will basically be obvious to you where are the bottlenecks. And if it's not, just ask the finance team, and I'm pretty sure they'll actually know because they have to deal it day after day. Once you've done that, then find the quick wins and start automating everything. Kill Excel, optimize all the quick process, and monitor the impact. Don't make the mistake of jumping right away into a year-long ERP project or a 6-month-long project, because if you don't actually fix internally first, and you don't do that exercise first, then the ERP will be kind of useless at the end of the day. Because if you consider an ERP as kind of a magic, kind of a black box at the end of the day, if you give it bad data, then the output will be bad data also. So fix these things first. So the fourth learning out of this is the finance pain points are actually heavily tech oriented. And we're product managers, we're tech savvy people, and there's a lot of opportunities to help them. And when I say heavily tech oriented, they are heavily tech oriented. So the landscape nowadays of all the different finance problems is full of opportunities, whether it's accounting, account receivable, budgeting, audit, reporting. There are tons of really cool fintech and companies that you can integrate with in a matter of days, of hours, and make a big difference right away for the finance team. So get out there, read about these guys, and start integrating and start looking at like how you can quickly fix and automate or improve these things, because it's a magical world out there, and there are a lot of resources that can be utilized. And as a product manager, these are like crazy interesting projects. So other ways product can help and can work with finance. And here I'm really talking to you product managers, and I'm sure you've read loads of literature around the autonomous squads. So if you already considered your squad as autonomous, I'd like to challenge you and to think again about it and add to your checklist: are you really responsible of all your data? I mean, have you actually checked whether you report finance data correctly, that you know all the finance KPIs, that your features are actually moving? Are all the data flows actually flowing through your organization correctly? What about some of the KPIs that are sometimes completely overlooked by product managers, such as VAT return? So do take the time to actually consider whether your team is fully and accountable for everything that they produce, all the data. And be humble about it, and because it's really challenging to do that, because these KPIs tends to be completely different than the ones you might focus on right now. And some, let's say, front-end mobile team might be far away from finance, but do actually make the effort to consider that really within your team responsibilities, and you'd be surprised. There are tons of insights that the finance team can bring to products. Another thing to add to your checklist as a squad is you need to add finance as a launch requirement to your feature releases. There are tons of really good companies out there that are actually already using these requirements, and they don't launch a new feature unless they have the green light from finance. So don't think of that as a blocker or another layer of requirement to your releases, but do make sure that you actually even consider or like run by the finance team what you're about to launch or what you're thinking about launching, and accept that input, because not doing that now can actually bring you more problems further down the line. Because if the finance tomorrow come to you and say, well, actually we don't even know if your feature is increasing the revenue or decreasing the cost, then what's really the point of your feature really at the end of the day? So do that as early on as possible. And really, in the same kind of mindset is when you do your A/B test or when you do testing around your releases, don't only consider your key metrics, whether it's CPA or anything else. Do have a check with finance data too to see whether you can add finance KPIs to your success metrics. This is really important, and this is a really good effort to make it right at the beginning, because at the end of the day, if you're able to show your C-level suit that you're moving the needle from the finance perspective, I assure you, you'd have much more power to influence these people. And make sure to track data regularly. So this is kind of a no-brainer, but at the end of the day, it's often an oversight and something that project managers don't do. Build your Looker dashboards with the finance KPIs. So make sure to keep an eye on them. So as a product manager, we often spend a lot of time with engineers, designer, customer care, sales, even our customers. And we often don't spend enough time with finance team. So I heavily recommend, and as a best practice, to invite them to your table. Personally speaking, I've created a new role within my team called the embedded finance agent. So this person actually sits within my squad and is here to provide the knowledge that we need because, well, I haven't done finance in the past, and my engineers haven't done finance in the past, and it's a really complex world. So having someone from the finance team to sit on your table will actually help smoothen the communication, and there won't be any knowledge silos within your company. And this is really, really interesting. Invite finance to your retros. So finance team, even if they don't have most of the time the agile mindset right at the beginning, they are dying for it. There are tons of learnings that the finance team can actually get from working in an agile way, if possible, obviously. So do invite them to your retros, and it won't only benefit your team, but it will also benefit them. So as a whole, inviting them to your retros, planning sessions, or even on your daily sometimes, if possible, obviously, then it's a benefit for your team, their team, but and also for the entire company. And this is really a best practice that I can vouch for, and it's working magic super quickly. And my final best practice that I will encourage any product manager to consider is when you do draft your OKRs, think about the finance team. Think about maybe building some key results around shared objectives with the finance, because it's the best way to actually get an alignment between the finance and the product team, and to avoid letting the finance team lagging behind the rest of the company and become a blocker for the growth, because that is the reality. If you don't consider finance as as a really important team within your company and to embed it within all the decisions that you take as a product manager, then at some point, eventually, I can assure you, finance will become a blocker for you. And it doesn't have to be. So my final learning, and probably the most important one for this video, is you have to make finance part of your day-to-day. Include them in your discussions, bring them in as early as possible, and invite them to challenge you on your projects. And both will benefit from it, not only you as a product manager, but them also from learning from your agile methodologies, but also from being included as early on as possible. So these are my 5 learning. And as a recap, you've seen that most of the issues that the finance team are actually facing on today are heavily tech oriented. So don't run away from your responsibilities as a fully autonomous squad, but actually embrace them and try to include them in your day to day. And that's it for me. Thank you everyone.